Hi, and welcome to the curriculum preview for the 5th 6 weeks for science in 2nd grade. Thanks for joining me. I want to apologize if my throat is a little froggy and my voice sounds a little bad. Like many of you, I'm dealing with some allergies, so please bear with me if I sound a little bit gravelly today. The infographic on the right-hand side of the screen may look familiar to you. It should be hanging up in your science lab, and it really does a great job of outlining how we look at different biomes at the different grade levels here in Birdville. And we're going to take a closer look at this just as a reminder of how the tundra fits in with the life science standards in 2nd grade, and then looking ahead to the next 6 weeks and how it fits in with grasslands as well. Before we do that, as always, I just want to remind you about some of the key documents for planning. Today I'm going to talk about the unit overview as well as the pacing guide, and then I want to mention the units of study for the last 2 6 weeks as well. So let's get started with that view. This is a document in forethought that really shows you at a glance and generally by 6 weeks. And if we take a look at the 5th and 6th 6 weeks a little bit more closely, I want to point out just a few things. As we talk about the options for pacing for the 5th 6 weeks, it might be good for us to kind of know what spirals between the 2 6 weeks and what's new. So you'll see in these two boxes I have just kind of paraphrased and summarized the standards, and each 5th 6 weeks and 6th 6 weeks have a different biome that we use as a specialized lens just to use as an application for what we're learning about in life science in 2nd grade. So for instance, in the 5th 6 weeks, we talk about basic needs, basic needs of plants and animals, and at some point we'll look at that within the tundra. And then we'll also spiral back to that in the 6th 6 weeks and look at those basic needs in the grassland. And you can see that that is the same for the first couple of bulleted points there. And you'll notice in the 6th 6 weeks, there's a box that's red that has highlighted two different standards that are really highlighted mostly in the 6th 6 weeks. So the standard that deals with looking at characteristics and behaviors, we're going to focus mostly on animals in the tundra, and then we're going to come back to that same and really focus on animals, but also plant characteristics. And then we'll be talking about insects when we get to the grassland. So just a couple of things to keep in mind. The other thing I want to just notice over here, or point out over here, is that when students are starting to learn about the life science standards, we're going to use a variety of environments and biomes, whatever's in STEM scopes and aims, not worry about making everything go through the tundra lens. There's going to be a time and place for that application, and we're going to look at that with the pacing guide. So before we talk about the pacing, let me just kind of talk to you about where your students have been and where they're going. This view really helps see how as students progress through the grade levels, what they've experienced before and then where they're going next. And so the next view kind of shows us a little, same infographic, I've just moved the top of it over to the left-hand side so we can see. Last year in 1st grade, your students looked at the forest and the desert. So they learned about their life science standards, and then they took a closer look in those two biomes. And then this year, your kiddos will be looking at their life science standards throughout the lens of the tundra and the grassland. Next year, just looking ahead in 3rd and into 4th grade, they're going to take a deeper look at just one biome in the rainforest aquatic. And then 5th grade really uses all of those experiences as kind of like a capstone to apply some more of the sophisticated standards that they're going to learn into all of these different applications. So again, just a framing to kind of help you understand where your students have been and where they're going to be going. And then lastly, this is just a reminder that just as we start to introduce those life science standards, we're going to use whatever's in STEM scopes and aims. And then as they master that concept, we're going to look at that specialized biome to explore and apply those concepts. So let's see what this looks like a little bit more practically. In forethought, there's normally just a one pacing guide, but when we have our life science units, we have a choice. We can have two different options for the way that we pace that. Now, it's also helpful for you to know that these two options that are available for Unit 5 in the 5th 6 weeks will be repeated again in the 6th 6 weeks. So if you'd use one particular option this 6 weeks, you can use the other one next 6 weeks or the same. It's really your choice, but that's something that you might want to keep in mind. You'll see this year on the curriculum preview, I've kind of added this little icon, this little polar bear, to help you visualize when you talk about the tundra throughout the unit. So if you look at option 1, you'll see it's divided into these 4 different sections. And within here, Monday through Wednesday, you're just going to use a variety of biomes or environments, whatever's in STEM scopes and aims. But then when you get into the elaborate, that's when you're going to start to look at the tundra. And you're going to say, let's look and see what are the basic needs of plants and animals in the tundra, because that's a very different kind of environment than what we have here. And then when you get ready to evaluate, you'll use the tundra, but also a variety of environments. So what the option 1 does, you can see, is that you learn about a standard, apply through the tundra, evaluate in whatever environments you might want to, and then you go on to the next standard. So this spirals through with each standard you kind of touch on the tundra. If you look over at option 2 on the right-hand side of the screen, you'll see that there's no mention of the tundra in the first 4 weeks of the 6 weeks at all. So you're just going to use anything that's in aims and STEM scopes. But then that allows you to have a 10-day or 2-week nice block of time where you can do an in-depth research project or some sort of inquiry project that focuses on the tundra, spiraling back to those standards. So depending on which way you want to do that, and again, you can use one of the options this 6 weeks and then use a different option next 6 weeks. Okay, so next I'd like to just walk you through what this might look like when you put pencil to paper for option 1. So we're going to look at this a little bit more closely. So you'll see a screenshot of the district calendar up on the screen, and our 5th 6 week starts February 27th and ends on April the 13th, and I've marked out the science CBA there as a day. So when we look at option 1, the first unit is about 5 days. So we might introduce with engage and then explore the first 2 days. You may not have any time to move forward with your lessons for the CBA, but then as we move through here, finishing up our explain, doing our elaborate, and then maybe our evaluate on these days. And so the day that we would talk about the tundra would be here. So generally that's what that would look like on the calendar. This is a very specific example of what a lesson plan might look like with option 1. So I'll let you take a look at that. If you want to go ahead and pause the video so that you can look through there, and then I'll come back and when you unpause it, I'll highlight a couple of key points I wanted you to notice. Okay, so now that you have a chance to take a look at that, you'll see that I've really blocked this out into 5 different days that goes through the 5E lesson model, and all of the resources that you see on here are highlighted and listed in the unit overview. So you'll know exactly where you need to go to find, sorry about that, find things that specifically relate to the tundra. As you can imagine, the tundra is not going to be really highlighted that much with examples in aims and STEM scope. So next I'm going to show you in the unit overview where you can find those additional resources. Okay, let's just take a quick look at what option 2 would look like. Again, looking at the district calendar, we're just going to compact all of our life science standards into those first 4 weeks, and then that's going to open up those last 2 weeks to do an in-depth project on the tundra if that's what you'd like to do. And then this view just shows for option 2, I've just basically pasted out how you might want to cover the different standards and then open that up for the last 2 weeks for your unit. Okay, so as I mentioned, all of the resources that we have for the life science standards in general environments as well as the tundra can be found in the unit overview, and those are in forethought. So this is just a couple of screenshots of those pages in there, and I just want to highlight if you are planning on doing a research project and you want some ideas, there's a little section on here and over here that can give you some ideas if you're going to be choosing option 2, as well as the key concepts for some of those standards. Also, as I mentioned, underneath each standard, so this is 2.9a, there's going to be some additional related resources that are going to be here that are going to specifically link to the Tundra. So don't forget, if you're looking for either option 1 or option 2 and you want to start taking a look at that through the Tundra lens, there's some resources in there that I've added in. And then lastly, there's some resources you may not have known were in here, but they're under the unit overview for the 5th 6 weeks. So here's the 5th 6 weeks, the unit overview, and you'll find the pacing guide and the unit overview there. But I've also hung some other additional resources. And the reason that they're here and not with a standard is because these are usually large research projects, or they're activities that cover a variety of the standards, and they don't really go with just one standard. So don't forget that this is another resource to get some good ideas. Okay, as we wrap up, I just want to remind you about one more resource for you. Every time I do a curriculum preview, I really try to give you something relevant or timely or new, something that you can take back and use. And if you'll head back to Canvas and just to the right of where you access this video, you're going to see this s'more with a link under the just-in-time learning. And I just want to highlight a couple of things in here. Let me pull it over. So this is a s'more that I've made with some upcoming events for the spring as well as the summer. Some of the resources are for teachers, some of them are for students, some of them are free to sign up for. So if they're something that are of interest to you, you might want to go ahead and take a look at those and make sure you don't miss out, because they do fill up quickly. And then at the bottom, if you scroll down, there's been lots of new resources that I've sent to the campus this year, specifically for life science. So if you click down here, it'll open up a PowerPoint, and this is just a quick visual guide so you know what to look for on your campus as you're teaching life science. So as I mentioned, there are some brand new resources. This is a really cool little flip chart for biomes, and it includes the tundra. I list the grade levels up here at the top so you know what's relevant for you. But again, some of these things we've had a couple of years, and I just want to remind you about them. And some of them are specific to 2nd grade. Specifically, these books were delivered about 3 years ago, and they should be somewhere in your team's room, somewhere in there. They can be housed in your room because they're specifically for you. So those are some great books, so you might want to take a look out for those. And then at the bottom, finally, there's some field trip connections for life science that you may or may not know about. So I just wanted to make you aware of that. So as we wrap up, I just want to thank you again for joining me on the curriculum preview. Good luck this 6 weeks, and as always, please reach out if I can help you in any way. Thanks. Have a great day.